Hello and welcome back to Russ Plays Games. My name is Russ, and as you can see, we're sitting in front of my paint station. And today we're back with more of the miniatures painting tutorial. In the last episode, we went over the slap chop method, so I had some of these contrast paints, and we kind of went over some of the techniques that you can use for slap chop, and we'll probably be mixing a few of those styles together. Today, at long last, we are actually doing Ian Crusader. Okay, Ian is a Crusader mage, and in this is the alternate sculpt. This is the original sculpt. As you can see, his sword is sheathed across his back, and he's got like a scroll case on his back right there, right here. And yeah, you can kind of see that he's got a couple of like spell scrolls with him. And I actually think this little thing that came off the side there was actually a piece of flash, and I think I just painted it anyway. It kind of looks like a little strap hanging down or something like that. So that's why I did it. But yeah, so this is Ian Crusader Mage. Okay. And like I said, that's the original sculpt. And this is the alternate sculpt. And as you can see, he doesn't have the scabbard or the scroll case on his back. He's got what looks to be a flame in one hand, and then he's got his sword in the other, kind of held out at an angle. Okay, so he's kind of holding his sword kind of like that. Okay, it'll become a little bit more obvious once we start getting some paint on it. Just to kind of show you some of the things that I've been painting. This is one of the first Reaper miniatures that I ever painted. This is the Black Legionnaire. I don't know that I actually have. Let me see here. Nope, I don't have the thing right here with me, I don't think. All of those are bones. This is the Black Legionnaire, okay? I always love this guy because he's got the big spear, and yeah, he's really cool. He's got like a lot of chainmail that you can paint. And as you can see, he's got this nice tabard that I've painted all white and then went back over with some red, and then have this little alternating pattern. That's because I'm actually painting I'm actually painting these miniatures to proxy for a game called Chronopia that came out back in the 90s. And then to kind of supplement some of those guys, I found this human paladin character who's almost like a chess piece, because he's got like a big shoulder pad that looks like a castle, and he's standing on what looks like a castle. He's got like a little door. He's got like little windows all around it. Okay, and he's got like this big sword across his back. He's got like a small dagger in his front. And as you can see, I've painted him in the same way. Now, this is a multi-part figure. Okay, the sword actually comes off. That's how I was actually able to paint a lot of the stuff on the back, is I just primed him as two separate components. I primed him, one with this one was the sword, and then the other one was the figure itself. Okay, and so that's how I painted him. One figure that I'm going to do as sort of a comparison between metal versus plastic, kind of the bones versus the metal figures, is this is part of the Overlord's figures. This is Balthon. He is a cleric of the Overlords. He has this nice mace in the front, and he's carrying a little skull. Okay. And I always thought that it would be kind of fun to kind of paint this guy up and see how he looks. Okay. But I have not yet gotten the metal figure. So once I get the metal figure, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a paint where I'm going to paint the metal figure and the plastic figure kind of at the same time, so that you can see the differences in quality between the plastic and the metal. And you'll notice that a lot of the plastic figurines still retain a lot of the detail, but some of it kind of gets a little lost in the translation, and we'll get to that when we get to it. And so, without any further ado, I said that I was going to kind of mix up a few of the styles. So what I'm going to do is, first off, is I'm going to do kind of a dry brush of the face, the hair, and sort of his like clothes here on the back and then here on the front, okay? And the reason why we're going to do the dry brushing of white is because we're going to do that in contrast, and then the rest of it we're actually going to do as a normal thing. So we're actually going to end up with a few things. Okay. Now, oh, and then one other thing I wanted to show you here real quick was I picked up a little pack. This was a 3-pack of bones. So there's 2 candelabras and then this little treasure chest that's just like a pile of gold coins. Okay. And I absolutely love this thing. It's so encrusted with details and stuff. And like, this is plastic. Just to show you how far they've come with their bones plastic stuff. And then this is the candelabra that I painted up. Eventually I'll get around to finishing it. But yeah, this is one that I actually used a little bit of some mixing of some styles. Like, I did some things and then put some contrast paint over it and did some other things like that. So there's different ways that you can actually work with this kind of stuff. So, you know, you can do it. There's a lot of things that you can do, being that a lot of these things are different ways that you want to, you know, use the miniatures depending on how you want it to look. You can make them look different ways, okay? And so that's what we're here to accomplish. Okay. So when I say we're going to mix styles, I really mean we're going to mix styles, okay? And what we're really going to do with this kind of stuff is we need to make sure that we get as much of the detail work done as possible before we start putting on the contrast paint, okay? Because the biggest thing with contrast paint is you want it to show up, but you don't want it to be so much that it's going to overpower everything, okay? And it's okay if you get a few extra details because you can go back and clean it up later, okay? So don't worry about it if you're like getting the belt or you're getting certain parts of him that you're not sure you want to make that way, because like a lot of this stuff, because it looks like, yeah, he's got gloves on. So I think actually he doesn't have gloves on there. So I think what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and get his hand. Just for the heck of it. get away with making that flesh rather than a glove, and we can get away with that. And we're going to use a mix of the styles on the flame, and we are going to end up doing the flame with OSL, or object source lighting. So be sure to stick around for that, because that will be a lot of fun. Okay. So I think we're almost done with that. And I can start doing some of that. And the lighter you get the edges and the various parts that you want to look certain ways, the lighter you can get that, the better it's going to actually look. Okay? So you really want to lighten it up. Okay. Now, let's grab that, and that. I think those will work. So, I have my Yundan Yellow contrast paint, the Celestium Blue contrast paint, and the Gulliman Flesh, which we're going to start with, okay, because that's going to be the easiest one to do. Now, the reason why I'm doing the hand more fleshy toned than, like we would normally do is because I want it to look more natural looking. I'd like it to be almost like he took his gloves off to have a fire spell in his hand. because I don't think he'd be trying to cast a spell with his glove on. And maybe he is. Who knows? Okay, so that's that. That one's an easy one. Okay, so the biggest thing that we did here, okay, as you can see, it's kind of difficult to see, but basically, okay, what we did there is we put the face, okay, and you can see that the eyebrows, okay, you can see that the eyebrows are still white. I know it's hard to kind of tell, but the eyebrows are still white, okay, and then we painted the hand over here, okay, in a brown color. And then what we're going to do is we're going to, the next color that we're actually going to do, instead of doing the gold, is we're going to do the blue, okay? And now we want to put this in a specific spot, okay? And there's a reason for this. Because what we want to do, okay, is we are going to try to get the yellow color on kind of the trim. I don't know if we're going to be able to do it, but we're going to try it. So he's got like a little robe that we're going to put that kind of a yellowish color on. Okay. Don't know if it's going to work or not. But we're going to give it the old college try, as they say. So the biggest thing we're going to do right now, very, very intentional. I'm just going to put this blue right in there. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the blue down here. Okay. think. Changing up just a tiny bit here. Grab this Militarum green. Okay. And I'm going to paint his shirt, this color. Now, if anyone knows the fluff, they will probably understand the reason why I'm painting this green. And that's because old Ian here is part of the Ivy Crown. The Ivy Crown, interestingly enough, is a sect of the Crusaders, also known as the Poor Man's Knights. But they can be whatever you want them to be. Doesn't have to be perfect. Because here again, this is your world. You can make it how you want. If you want to make the guy do something, you can make him do something. Okay? Oh, I forgot to do that. Well, that's okay. Let me see here. I think. Let me see. just to add a tiny bit of contrast and variation. What I'm going to do is just a teensy weensy bit of contrast and variation. I'm going to use this orange, this Magdraw Flame, and I'm going to paint his little thing above his head, because I figured that if I tried to paint it blue, then it would contrast with the little, hood along the back. And so I thought maybe this might make it a little bit, stand out a little bit more, and just kind of make it that much more interesting to burn it. Come here. Stay, you piece of junk. Okay. And so there we go. And just so you can kind of see it, there's his face. Okay, with the hood, and then the yellow on the back, and then the green on the sleeves. I know it's kind of hard to see. Okay, and we'll get around to the flame in a little bit. I'm not going to worry about it right this minute, because we're going to need to paint other things first before we get to the flame itself. Okay. And so, now, first things first. When I get done painting this little solid, we'll call it for this half of the episode. When we come back, we will spend some time doing some of the rest of this. Okay. We'll finish up kind of painting this guy and get him looking good for the tabletop. So, I will see you in less than a second. So, checking the other figure for reference. I just want them to look somewhat similar. Just looking at what I did before. What it's supposed to look like a little bit. Yeah, sometimes I talk with an English accent. I don't know, I kind of like to do it. Actually, I've been watching a lot of James Bond lately. Just one of the reasons why I'm doing it. Okay, that's going to be good. I don't need too much. Oh, and I do need, just for this, I need to grab that. Okay. 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 It's kind of hard to tell, but on the original sculpt, the pommel I painted with a blue metallic, and so to keep it consistent, I painted this pommel with a blue metallic. You can kind of see that there. There you go. That's a little better. Yeah, you can see that blue metallic that I painted it with. So it kind of adds that little extra touch. And then I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this blue. Don't mind that. There's a method of my madness here, so just stick with the process. Okay. We're painting his pants a light blue because that will have a darker blue later. Okay. To keep the blues consistent, what we kind of have to do is we kind of have to pre-prime. Because if I put a dark blue onto his to his pants right now, they won't show because of the black prime. I mean, you'll know that there's paint on it, but you won't be able to tell what color because it's just so dark. And so, in order to do that, we throw a blue prime onto it, and then we hit it with the dark blue, and it shows right up. Okay? So, 1, 2. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but you do want to try to cover as much of it as you possibly can. Okay. And now, take our ultramarine blue. This ultramarine blue is a very transparent blue. So if you try to stick it over a dark paint like a black, it will not show up because the black will just show right through, and so it will just appear as black, as the normal one does. And so you want to make sure that you put a lighter color underneath it. I do the same thing because I have this grape purple, and it's a very, very dark purple, and like this ultramarine blue, it's a very transparent color. So what I do is I put this petunia purple underneath, because it's a very light purple, as you can see. It's a very light purple. So you put that underneath, and then when you put the purple, the darker purple over it, you still get that really dark purple, but the lightness of the purple underneath shows through, and so it appears as purple paint. Okay? So if you have a transparent paint, if you know that it's a transparent paint, then you want to make sure that you try to put it on over something. Like one of the things that I like to do a lot with this ultramarine blue is I will use it when I am painting something like a spell effect, or maybe an orb of some kind that has some kind of magical, that I want to have a magical effect. And I will paint it white, and then I will come back with this dark blue, and I'll paint a couple of layers over it just to kind of make it, darken it up just a little bit, just to kind of make it stand out a little bit more. And so you just have to kind of know your paints when you're painting. And if you have dark paints, then you want to make sure that you put a lighter paint underneath. But if you put a white prime underneath paints, you end up with this. Okay? And you can really tell the difference between a white prime and a dark prime. Okay? Like, you can really tell the difference. It's night and day. Okay? So light primes should only be reserved for when you really, really, really want a very, very bright color. I mean, hence why the slap chop method uses white paint over the black paint, is because it gives you that nice contrast. That's why they call it contrast paint, is it gives you a nice contrast. Army Painter calls it speed paint because it's a speedy process. All you have to do is just dry brush your model, throw the paints on, and you're done. Okay, you don't have to go through all of the methods that we're going through right now because, you know, that takes a long time. All right, so I'm going to flip over to a little bit bigger brush now. This is my old standby. He's just starting to go out. I'm kind of sad. But the biggest thing that we're going to do right now is actually we're going to use the chocolate brown for a minute. Just because there's a couple things that I want to paint before we get there. Actually, there's really only one thing I want to paint. And that's this little handle right there. Let me come back to that in a minute. In fact, what I will do is I'll leave it right there. So we're going to come back to it. I'm going to do a few things with the moccasin brown first, and then we'll come back to that. Okay. So, for this moccasin brown, I mean, I love it for everything, from belts to boots. I use it for almost everything. It is the best brown. It's just nice and light. And even when you put like a shade on it, especially if you're using like the Seraphim Sepia, if you put a nice shade on it, it doesn't darken it down to the point where you can't tell what it is anymore. Stupid Facebook. I'm hoping that didn't register, otherwise it's going to be a tad bit embarrassing. Yes, on this tablet, Facebook is messing up. I'm getting a little sick and tired of it. And if it didn't pop up, just know that Facebook is being butt right now. At least on this. On my other devices it's working fine, just on this one it's just decided that it doesn't want to work all the time. So it keeps force closing. I'm just glad it didn't kick me out of my filming. Because it did that earlier today when I was trying to upload one of my other painting videos. Stupid Facebook. This is one of the main problems that I have with this brush now. As you can see, it just tends to split. And so what I have to do is frequently I have to come in and sort of re-tip it, which just slows down the painting process a lot. It's one of the reasons why I purchased a couple of other smaller brushes, is because I knew this one was dying. But it does get a ton of coverage in a short amount of time. That's the reason why I love using it. Okay. Now built. When I get done, I'll show you what it looks like so far. Now, sometimes, to get a little bit of variation in contrast, I will I'll see if my One Fang Brown has at least one more miniature in it. It's fine. And I'm sad about it. It's another one that I really, really love. But right at the moment, I'm not too worried about it. I need to finish up his boots. Sometimes, if you do it just right, you can re-tip it without having to clean it. It doesn't always work. Sometimes it just breaks right back apart. Like it did right there. Shoot. Okay. Gotta re-tip. I hate when that happens. Okay. Now the reason why I left the chocolate brown there is because on the bottom of these boots, well, not at the bottom of the boots, but on the boots, just below where the little part is, there's a tiny little spot that you can kind of see that has some ridges. And then there's the normal boot on the bottom. And I'm going to paint that in brown. And I'm also, there's a small, like, there's also a small little kind of a strap of sorts that is on the top of his main part of his foot. And so I'm going to try to get that as well in the chocolate brown. So we'll see about doing that, and then maybe get his sole of his foot at that point. I'm actually thinking that that's supposed to be this color. Yep. Okay. And a lot of times if you have something like a detail on the side of the boot or whatever, a lot of times you can come back with a shade and color it in, which is what we'll end up doing here in a few. May or may not get this all done tonight. I'm going as fast as I can, but I'm already at 23 minutes. And I'd like to try to keep it under 30 minutes if I can. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to it. Shading process, so we may have to come back and finish it. I didn't want to spend too much time with it, but I'm going as fast as I can, I swear. Cool. You have to be adept getting your hands in where they don't belong. What I mean by that is that if you have to come up in between his legs like I was doing, so you come up in between the legs like this, and that way you can kind of see I'm going up in between the legs and I can get in to the inside of his foot. What I'm trying to do is leave the sole for a different color. So I'm trying to make sure that I don't touch the sole with this color, but then I'm getting everything else that needs to be gotten with this color. We're almost done. Like I said, we'll try the Mornfang Brown. I'm hoping it has one more figure in it. We will see. We'll see. Sometimes it doesn't want to work. Okay. Actually, I'm going to use the Morn Fang. Okay. So, we're going to use the melted chocolate. One more time. Okay, there's a couple things that we're going to get with this color. One of the worst things that you can do is make your leather monochromatic. What do I mean by that? Well, to make it monochromatic means you just paint it all one color. Because not every single color is going to have the same hue, the same look, or the same feel. Okay. And so what I try to do is I try to vary a lot of these. Okay. And that's why I'm using a few different browns, is because I like to have some be deeper leather, others be lighter in color, just because it kind of helps in the variation. It gives the eye something to look at. Okay. Okay. Alrighty. There's two more things to paint, and then I think we'll be done for this evening. This might go a little bit long. I'm going as fast as I possibly can. Okay. But just so you know, just in case this cuts out, okay, I'm going to use an emerald green color on this little part on his wrist. Okay. And I'm going to use Mornfang brown, and like I said, it is dying on me. And I'm going to use that on this little part on the front side of his thing, and on this pouch on the side here. Okay. So, going as quickly as I possibly can. Now, first things first. I'm going to color. No, I'm going to color that metallic. Come back to that. But yeah, my Mornfang brown is dying. I've only had it for a decade. What do you want from me? Hashtag send help. My Mornfang brown is dying. Okay. Alrighty. So, when we come back, we will shade the figure. We will shade it, and then we will come back in and do the flame, and we'll do the OSL with it. My metallic green is dying. This would work because I think this is supposed to be kind of an ivy crown sort of like a wrist protector kind of thing. I'm hoping I'm getting it right. So, going as fast as I can, folks. So smash that like button. Hit subscribe. And drop a comment below. Let me know what you think of this series so far. And that is what we have done. Like I said, when we get back, we will shade him and we will get the flame. We'll do the OSL. And as we say, we will see you on the next one.